The Eternal Fall. Chapter 7. The Fire That Consumes. The Judgment of Atlantis. Atlantis trembled. The sky, once an endless canvas of stars, had turned a violent shade of crimson, swirling with divine fury. The ocean surrounding the great city churned, waves rising higher than the palace towers. The gods were delivering their final punishment. From the Temple Mount, the high priest of the cosmos knelt before the sacred altar, his forehead pressed to the cold marble, whispering a desperate prayer. The celestial braziers, once bright blue, had turned black, a sign of impending doom. He lifted his trembling hands toward the heavens. Great ones, spare us! A deafening crack split the sky. Lightning struck the temple's tallest spire, sending shards of divine crystal raining onto the city below. The gods had made their decision. Atlantis would fall. The execution of Seriphus. Seriphus knelt in the execution square, wrists bound in heavy iron, his once magnificent celestial strength reduced to aching mortality. The air was thick with the scent of burning incense, of sacrifice and impending death. King Velion stood before him, sword in hand, his armor glinting in the eerie red light of the sky. The people of Atlantis had gathered to watch. Seriphus's gaze flickered across the sea of faces until he found her. Althea. She stood between the guards, her wrists bound, her lip bloodied, her gown torn from her earlier struggle. But her eyes burned with defiance. He gave her a small, knowing smile. She was alive. That was all that mattered. Valian raised his sword. "You were sent to watch over us," he spat, "but you could not resist defiling what was mine." Seriphus said nothing. He had made his choice, and he would make it again. Valian's blade descended toward his throat, and then the earth split apart beneath them. The fall of a kingdom. A thunderous roar filled the air as the ground cracked open, swallowing entire buildings in a cascade of rubble. The ocean, once kept at bay by divine favor, rushed toward the city like a beast finally freed from its chains. Screams rang through the streets as Atlantean nobles and warriors alike fled in terror. Valian stumbled back, his sword forgotten, as his great city crumbled before his eyes. The gods had damned them all. Seriphus tore free of his bindings, the chains falling from his wrists like dust. He had no time to question how, only that he needed to find Althea. She was already moving, fighting against the guards, racing toward him. "Seriphus!" He caught her just as a massive column collapsed behind them, sending debris flying. Valian's voice rose above the chaos. "You cannot have her!" Seriphus turned just in time to see the king charging toward him, sword drawn. The fight was brutal, swift. Seriphus dodged the first strike, but he was weaker now, mortal. Valian drove his knee into Seriphus's ribs, sending him crashing into the dust. He raised his sword for the killing blow. Althea screamed, "No!" With one desperate move, she grabbed a fallen soldier's dagger and plunged it into Valian's side. The king's eyes went wide. He stumbled, his blood soaking into the broken earth. For the first time in his life, Valian looked at her with something other than possessiveness. He looked betrayed. Althea stepped back, her chest rising and falling in ragged breaths. Seriphus grabbed her hand. "We have to go." The palace towers were already collapsing. The streets were breaking apart. There was no saving Atlantis, but they could still save themselves. The gateway to Earth. They ran. Through the dying streets, past the wailing priests and screaming nobles, past the statues of gods that had once protected them, now shattered. Seriphus knew where he had to go, the Temple of the Cosmos. At its heart was an ancient portal, a sacred gateway that had been sealed for centuries. It led to the mortal world, the sky shattered above them, lightning crashing down like the wrath of the heavens. By the time they reached the temple's inner sanctum, the air was thick with the scent of burning incense and divine power. The high priest was already there, his robes stained with dust and blood. He looked at Seriphus with knowing eyes. "It was always meant to be you." Seriphus grabbed Althea's hand. "Open it." The priest hesitated. You will never return here." Althea's fingers tightened in his. Seriphus met the priest's gaze, unshaken. "Then let this be our goodbye." The priest raised his hands, chanting in an ancient tongue. The portal blazed to life, a swirling vortex of silver and blue. Althea turned to him, her eyes filled with everything she could not say. "Are you ready?" he asked. Her answer was to pull him with her. The moment they crossed the threshold, the temple collapsed behind them. Atlantis, their home, was gone. They had escaped, but the gods were not finished with them yet.